Hi there. This is Tyler Finn, the host of the Abstract Podcast, and I'm coming to you today with a special bonus episode all about scale. We've talked to a variety of legal leaders over the past few months, general counsels, head of legal operations, other folks in legal about how they've scaled their teams and helped their organizations navigate hypergrowth. I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get started. First up, we have April Lindauer, General Counsel of Carta, about how she scaled her team through COVID. When you joined, Carta was about 200 employees. And today, the business is somewhere around 2,000 or so. So you've literally helped them 10x, I suppose, over the time that you've been there. Take us a little bit on that journey from 200 to 2,000 and maybe some of the highlights.
Yeah, I think some of the highlights were I joined shortly after their Series C fundraising. Mm-hmm. So I joined at a time when we were really looking to launch what we called our public markets product. So that product was an employee stock option plan for public companies. So we had just formed a broker-dealer at that time, and so that was really why I joined Carta. Mm-hmm. I also joined at a time where, their core business, they are an SEC-registered transfer agent, so it was also to help bolster that compliance program as well. Mm-hmm. And then also just to help manage and scale all of their legal services. So I joke around and say my job when I started was everything. And it over time, and as we went through various rounds of fundraising, we started hiring for more and more specialists.
Got it.
And whether it was in compliance or in legal.
Uh-huh.
So, but I really joined the company as a generalist at that point in time. So I did everything from commercial contracting to employment to IP, you name it. I was managing that along with a small team of lawyers for about 2 years.
And how big is the whole legal team today? It's like 50 or so?
Well, I manage today legal, compliance, and risk on a global level. So we have close to 50 employees globally. Of those employees, I believe now that 17 of those employees are lawyers.
Next up, we have Adam Becker, head of legal operations at Cockroach Labs. I sat down with Adam at Clock in Las Vegas earlier this year for a conversation around how legal ops can help legal departments scale. How do you think about, I don't know if these two things are at odds with each other either, but sort of building process that scales and can scale quickly, but also being able, 500 people, but Cockroach is a very innovative company. So I'd imagine things have to remain very flexible, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about balancing those two things?
And I think it's the same problem with technology now. It's a question I don't have an answer to.
Yeah.
I went in there building to scale, right? Because the legal team is now more than doubled in size since I've been there. So that's a scalable thing. Everything the company does is, scaling. How do we make it happen? But again, now we've hit this technological innovation where maybe there's better ways than there were a year ago, or in my case, a season ago.
Right.
and I think it's a balance between the two. And quite frankly, it's the same thing I see as something like this. The technology providers in our world are also having this conversation, right? Are we native AI? Are we putting it in? Are we integrating? Are we buying something? It's the same thing. We have this amazing product that we built, and now we have this new technology which we have to build into it. So we're all balancing it in a way. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but we're embracing both. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say this. Cockroach Labs has become very AI focused, and we made it a corporate goal to be an AI native company.
Yeah.
So we play with AI a lot. We have an exploratory program in legal we are using more than I ever thought. I'm very excited here to learn actually how to perfect my GPTs, because right now my GPT is overly helpful. Too much person in there. But we're building it. We're doing it. And it's cool. And I don't know where everything's going to go, but it's a balance. We still need stuff to work, but we are very open to what's next.
I also sat down at Clock in Las Vegas with David Cowen, founder and CEO of the Cowen Group, for a conversation around how helping scale your team can also help you scale your career. I think this builds on a point that you made earlier, which is I've observed that it's not just that you have to scale legal alongside the business as it scales, but people increasingly see legal as a very important component of a scaling business or helping the business scale. And I think a lot of folks would chalk some of that up, at least, to the rise of legal ops. Do you agree with that? How do you think legal ops helps businesses scale, not just legal teams?
It's a really good question. I think like in so many different ways. So we're going to get into a maturity. We're going to get into a maturity frame. So A, it depends on the maturity of the GC. B, it depends on the maturity of the individual that they've hired to run legal ops. C, it depends on the authority and the resources that they're going to give this individual. I mean, it's like,
right.
It gets really complex, right? So, but it does, like legal ops moves the needle. So it doesn't matter where you start so long as you start, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're Jen McCarron or you're Mary O'Connell or you're Lucy Basili, I mean, like if you're one of those people, like you're moving the needle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they've got maturity and they've got a decade of experiential knowledge.
Yeah.
If you've got 8 years of experience or 6 years, it's kind of like baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you've played high school, college, AAA, and you've had a lot of at-bats or you're
mm-hmm.
ready for the pros, and then you're not ready for the pros because you're a rookie in the pros.
Yeah.
And then you become Aaron Judge, right? And it's like, but not everybody becomes Aaron Judge. So, there's an impact of legal ops, but I do find, I think maybe the answer that's most helpful here about the role of legal ops is becoming, by authentic nature, a more interdependent part of the business of law and the business.
Mm-hmm.
So we are beginning to see intersections of information governance, data security, the various business units. We need a lot of smart people around the table to understand the potential that AI, Gen AI, the agentic workforce of the future holds for us. There's no one department that's going to own this, And so I think, because legal has so much to gain from this, that there'll be a lot of sharing and a lot of learning. So legal ops is part of legal. I almost don't think, I think that all of that is coming together at an accelerated rate. And I don't even know what the agentic world is all about yet. I'm just beginning to think about that myself. It's like, you're going to be an agent manager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait.
Right.
Who's going to be an agent manager? What are you talking about? What does that even mean? That's where we're all going to be together a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be this overbuilding of technology on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be more process around what are you doing? Do you have agents? What are you doing with your agents? I'm just listening to Reid Hoffman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm having a hard time keeping up. And if you haven't read Super Agency by Reid Hoffman, I'm like, I highly recommend Super Agency because he talks about how the human in the loop is the key. And what and who are we going to be in that leadership role of managing these agents? So I don't think we're going to be displaced.
The last of the conversations that I had in Las Vegas at Clock was with Tommie Tavares-Ferreira, Chief Strategy Officer at Lawtrades and former head of legal operations at Cedar and Peloton. Tommie and I had a conversation around why success in scaling legal operations means bringing your cross-functional stakeholders along with you. At least an evolution that I've seen where it's not just that legal is required to allow the company to scale.
Yep.
It's that these days folks look at legal and say, that's actually a very important partner in helping us scale. And I think legal ops is a big part of that.
Agreed.
You've done that before, right? A company like Rakuten here in the US, Peloton, which obviously experienced huge growth, and you were there for the IPO, Cedar as well. Talk to us a little bit about how you've helped not just legal orgs, but like organizations scale through your legal ops work.
If I was at Peloton for the IPO, I'd have many more millions of dollars in my bank account. But I came.
I'm getting the timeline.
I came right after.
Okay.
So why did I get caught on that minutia? Sorry.
No.
What was the actual question?
No. The question was really like, how have you, being at these organizations where there's been not just a scaling legal team or not just a scaling legal department, but also a really rapidly scaling business.
Yeah.
How have you helped the legal team and the wider organization scale?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So the beautiful part and position of legal operations, one of the opportunities that we have is when a company is growing. Like Cedar's a great example, like Series D, this is a growth company, not like hyper growth unmanageable, but certainly on a real growth trajectory, like projection. We can come in and look at what the business is trying to achieve. And if, I would hope that a legal operations person is doing this. If they're looking around the landscape of like what the business is trying to achieve, they can figure out where they fit into that. And really like if you're a good legal leader, and certainly, Vanessa at Cedar was, like, you're going, what are the company's objectives? Where does, the legal objectives ladder up to that? And then legal operations going, and how do I help us all achieve that? Right. So what does the company want to achieve? What does the legal department want to do in support of what the company wants to achieve? And then legal operation goes, and I'll make you all achieve it. Yeah. Right. So if the company is like hyper growth and trying to drive revenue and it's like closing deals faster, then guess what? Guess who's working on CLM stuff? Like, guess who's working with sales op to make sure that you're closing deals? Like, if you're trying to save costs and maybe you're working with procurement to go, what are we spending money on it? Where do we wrap our arms around that? Like, so I think the real opportunities in supporting that like big scale is that legal operations generalists really have the know-how to know what levers to pull to support growth. And even if it's happening rapidly, and like, I think that they know where to put themselves in to help to achieve those goals.
And to put the fine point on it, is what you've just described, that sort of framework, also a framework for prioritization?
Yeah.
In an environment in which there's probably a lot of different priorities or opinions
the bottom line is like, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? Like, so a lot of my time is spent as a legal ops professional sort of throwing everything on the whiteboard and then going, what's the matrix here? Like, what is the must get done? What is the nice to have? What's the wish list? Like, what are we not getting to this year? Because like everything comes in fast and furious. And it's why I probably like, speak so highly of like doing some sort of intake system. Like, it's really actually very important because it's important to see how much are you getting in sort of one pocket that just is maybe not important? And how do you actually systematize the things that are coming in that need some sort of like bounce back, need some sort of like, here's the answer to your question. Now with generative AI, that's going to do a lot of that, like first pass, maybe answer the question, because a lot of that doesn't need a legal mind or a legal operations mind. And legal ops leaders are really going to find these opportunities of like, where do we strategize, where we do spend our time and where we don't spend our time, where our lawyers spend their time, where they don't spend their time. But really, like, we can't all be everything all the time. But lawyers feel like they need to, sometimes they want to, and sometimes they actually have to be. So being able to figure out like where we can put them, where they don't maybe need to answer a question, where that can be like a self-serve thing, where technology fits in and like actually helps us to get that done. All of that stuff, those are really fun problems and challenges. But if you don't prioritize, you will spin out really fast because there's a lot to do.
Finally, I recently sat down with Jordan Hatcher, co-founder, COO, and CLO at The Grid, and former first lawyer at Staffbase, about how he helped the Staffbase organization grow and scale from 80 employees to more than 800 and set them up for a successful IPO. I don't want us to pass over your time at Staffbase because I think it's really interesting, and I think you probably have a lot of lessons to share. Where was the company at when you joined? That's probably a great place to start.
Yeah. So I interviewed in end of June or July, and then started at the beginning of September. And even between that time frame, I think they'd added 30 people. So I was the 80th employee. They didn't have an office here in Amsterdam. And I was lucky enough that when they offered me the job and I said, look, I want to stay, that we came up with a solution to stay here in Amsterdam. And it ended up working out. We had, I think at one point, 40 people or so in the office here in Amsterdam.
Oh, wow.
And that's a whole story in itself, like basically starting the office here as the only exec at the time. And yeah, they were just getting started. It was the typical Wild West that most of the listeners will understand, and that, AEs could effectively make up their own contracts. They, there wasn't any of the structures in place. I mean, you don't expect it though. I didn't go in expecting to have a lot of that as the first legal hire in. Mm-hmm. And also, when you're at the very early stage of a company, which I also see even more now, the focus is keeping the company alive, right? Mm-hmm. And it's closing sales, getting some momentum. Mm-hmm. You're not running a compliance organization. You're not trying to tick every box, right? You're, of course, you're trying to do the right thing, mm-hmm. but, the structures that you have in place at, a 10 million ARR business are different than the ones that you have at a 50 or 100 or about mm-hmm. to go public. And in the same way, when you're in that sort of 1 to 10 range when you start, when usually they hire their first lawyer unless they're regulated, it's just chaos in some ways, right?
Lessons that you drew from your time there, or maybe getting them a little bit away from chaos as they basically 10x'd in size over the course of your tenure.
Yeah, so while I was there, they went from, as you mentioned, from 80 people to 800 people. I think one of the first things that I did in the first 2 weeks, it was, we're opening up a new office in London, do all the incorporation and sort it all out. So one thing is, at the very beginning, if you're joining one of these smaller outfits as the first lawyer, it's a moving train, and you kind of have to run up and speed alongside of it and join it, right? In the sense that you can't just jump in and expect to make a lot of change, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to disrupt the quarter. I kept on with their negotiation processes. They had a contract at the time that wasn't easy to negotiate in the U.S., mm-hmm. But we kept at it because it's the one that they had. And then we listened, I really heard from the team about where the pain points were, and then tried to create something that was more global to go on forward, right? Mm-hmm. At the very beginning, you have to really get stuck in. So, mm-hmm. When we opened rented the first office, I found that office here in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. I ordered the IKEA furniture. I helped build the IKEA furniture. You kind of have to really dive in and into anything almost, because again, it is a fast-moving train, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you can't lose focus of what the core of your job is, right? It's very easy to get distracted by a lot of other things, and you have to focus on that. Later, with growing the team, especially during the COVID crisis and the size that we got to, and then my own story with my son who has special needs, mm-hmm. I really didn't take care of myself. And I see mm-hmm. that after having taken the sabbatical and everything else, like mm-hmm. I focused a lot on work. It was an escape for me, mm-hmm. But it was also really demanding, and I should have had better tools to either take care of myself or to kind of handle the work in the right way, so that mm-hmm. Reducing my own personal stress.
Thanks so much for listening to this bonus episode with stories from legal leaders about how they scaled their teams and helped their businesses scale. Hope you enjoyed this one and hope to see you next time.